founder on our live show. All right, today's episode, we're continuing the theme of the business model, right? So today's topic is building a sustainable business model. Now, of course, sustainable here can mean different things to different people. But what I'm trying to do here is really just try to put the basics of a business model from a meta perspective, right? So this is not strategies of exact business models. That's what we did yesterday. We looked at some business models, and but today we're trying to look at the thought process that goes into the business model itself, right? So um, let's look at the first thing that you need to do when you want to create a sustainable business model. That is knowing your market, right? So understanding your target market and customers. That's very important. Target market, customers, you got to really look at the customers from their psychographics, not just demographics. So if it's a fintech, okay, so it's, I don't know, solopreneurs making $150,000 a year, something like that. But you need to dig deeper. Who are these solopreneurs? What are their pain points? What are their needs? And you need to also look at the research. You need to look at the research of your competitors and, of course, your industry trends. So there are many things that you need to put together so that you have a big picture of the market. And of course, you need to use this data to make informed decisions. So a lot of the times, if you're seeking funding, this is even more important. A lot of the times, the pitch decks that come across my desk, I see when they talk about the target market, it looks like it's just a few facts, figures taken from a Google search, right? Or a chat GPT search. No, that won't cut it. You gotta look, you may know your target market really well in your mind, right? So you understand it is because maybe you were part of that target market segment, and then you know the pain points once upon a time, maybe, or even now, you are one of the audience, you are one of the buyer personas, which is good. But you need to formulate it into a document of sorts because that will come in handy later on. So you need to put the business model together as a proper kind of a system, right? Okay, next. Very important, you need to define your value proposition. What makes your product or service unique? Well, you may have some unique features, but you got to think beyond just the features of the product or service. What other things can you bring in that set you apart? Because look, features a competitor can maybe copy, right? Features, service. But if it is something that goes beyond it, something that goes to the fundamental essence of your brand, competitors may not be able to copy that. So you need to then articulate your value proposition clearly. Don't muddle it. Very often, I look at pitch decks, and the value proposition is very muddled. Just today, I was looking at somebody sent me a pitch deck, and so they defined the problem, which was they were saying that almost 99% of the game market does not allow their players to do something. I don't want to really say that. And then I looked at the solution, which is usually the value proposition, because you won't have a slide that says our value proposition, right? You could say that, but it's usually the solution to the problem. And the solution did not address that big problem that you set up. Instead, it was talking about something else, which is an extreme case, but you get the point, right? So aligning your value proposition with your target market is very important. You need to align your value proposition to your target audience, to the buyer personas. And I mean, you need to be focusing on benefits, not just the features, right? Now, of course, this is, everyone knows this. But the reason I put it here is because when you're creating a business model, you would be tempted to sort of talk about the features. And look, separate that. The business model is more about the flow of value, right? So the flow of value from your product or service to your customers and their money back, and their money loyalty, their attention, all that back. So there is a value exchange here, and a business model should take that into account. It's not just products and features. Next, monetization strategy. So value moving across, that is monetization. Choosing the right pricing model for your product. And we discussed this yesterday, and we looked at several different kinds of models, right? So you had the kind of traditional models, then you had a subscription model, then you have the platform kind of model, all those things, right? But pricing models also are very important. Maybe it's a hybrid. So you got to figure that out. And usually you would, but also articulate it. Now, you got to determine revenue streams, right? So not only revenue streams now, if you're going for funding especially, and you're creating a pitch deck, you talk about your main revenue stream, but also dig deep, research, analyze, and try to come up with potential revenue streams that are beyond your primary revenue stream, right? That's very important. Finding the right balance between value and cost. So in this movement of value, the exchange of value that happens between your service or product and your audience and your customers, you got to look at the value and the cost, and always give more value than you charge, right? Always give more value than you charge. Because look, I always say this. This is, like I said, I need to tattoo this on my arm. Investors are not stupid, right? So when you are showing a business model and your pricing model and your revenue structure, if they feel that you're charging just to inflate the figures, you're charging too much, they're going to drop it like a hole, because this is not acceptable. You got to be really realistic. You got to be authentic. You got to think through. Your aim as a startup founder is to provide more value than you charge your customers. And also, you need to build a scalable revenue model, right? Because sometimes some revenue models may not be scalable. When they are scalable, they start to break down. What they are, I don't know. You got to figure that out. You got to do those simulations, right? Okay, next, a strong team. So part of the business model is building a strong team. Trust me, you got to hire the right people for the right roles. Now, you might say, how does that become part of the business model? A business model is based on these things. It's the value proposition. It's the monetization strategy. It's the pricing models. It is the team that's going to deliver on the promise of the value moving from your product or service to your customers. So, hey, your strong team. Define roles and responsibilities clearly. And a strong company culture. Okay, granted, if you're seeking funding, there is no company culture. But if you're already working, you're bootstrapping, you got an MVP, yeah, then you would have already had a little bit of company culture, right? So articulate that. Does that align with your core values? Does that align with your brand essence? Remember one of the previous live episodes I talked about creating a brand positioning, brand story and all that, right? Creating incentives for your team to succeed. Include that in your pitch deck if you're going for funding. Investors will be happy to see that because they know now that you not only take care of selling your product or service, but you're also taking care of your team. And, it shows empathy, it shows all that. All right. Next, focus on customer acquisition and retention. As I said, if you cannot acquire customers, you got no business. You got no startup. And investors are more interested in this than anything else. Not your idea, not the tech. No, this one, customer acquisition. So develop a strong marketing strategy, or GTM, go-to-market strategy. You need a very strong marketing strategy. Building customer loyalty and retention programs. So it is not just how you're going to sell, but also you got to demonstrate, if you're seeking funding in your pitch deck, how you going to build customer loyalty? How are you going to retain your customers? How are you going to minimize churn? This is important because that determines your revenue and your profitability and all that. Measuring your customer acquisition costs. I said before, one of the biggest mistakes that founders make when creating their pitch deck and when they're seeking funding is not really taking into consideration customer acquisition costs. And even if they do, they don't really analyze it. They just put it out there. Optimizing your sales funnel. That is another big one. You got to optimize your sales funnel. What does that mean? It's a part of the go to marketing strategy. If you're seeking funding, you may not need to do this, but this is not just about going for funding. This is also about having a strong business model, sustainable business model for your startup to scale, to grow, to exit, to probably have a 7-figure, 8-figure exits. So for that, you need to have, always be optimizing sales funnel. Uh, Remember that Glenn Ross, that movie? I love that movie. In that, I think it's Alec Baldwin. This guy comes in, he's a hotshot kind of advisor, right? He is this manager. He comes in to try and motivate this team of, there's Al Pacino, there's a few others to develop sales. So he comes in and he writes on the board ABC, and he says, always be closing, right? ABC. Here, OSF, optimize sales funnel. That's way better than always be closing, because you don't need to really close if your sales funnel is optimized, right? And people who watch that movie would know what I'm talking about. Those, all right. Keep a close eye on metrics. And in a lot of my previous live episodes, I always talk about metrics. Metrics are important. Measuring the metrics are important. Keeping an eye on metrics are important. As a startup founder, it is your dharma. It is your duty to keep an eye on metrics every single week, Friday or Saturday. Set aside an hour, 2 hours, and look at metrics. This can include anything from, traffic to revenue, all that. So, but before doing that, you need to choose the right metrics to track, right? So don't go and waste time on how many likes your social media posts are getting, unless, of course, that means something. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many likes you get. You can get 1,000 likes, but no sales from it, right? Tracking and analyzing data regularly. Yes, make that a weekly habit. Not tracking metrics leads to disaster. Adjusting your strategy based on the data insights. So this is what happens. When you're following these metrics, you're keeping an eye on metrics. It gives you an opportunity to sort of keep your eye on the strategy and think about, pivoting or changes and change of tactics and things like that, right? Using metrics to guide decision making. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what's going on, you will be forced to make a decision when you're actually in the crisis. But if you're looking at the metrics, you could get indications like leading indicators or trailing indicators of impending disaster, right? So maybe your revenue is not affected, but maybe you're noticing a trend in, I don't know, something else, right? Customer behavior. You're looking at the traffic. The traffic remains the same, but a lot more people are going to non-sales related pages on your website away from your product pages or your service pages. That is a big indicator. You got to pay attention, because that means in a month, 2, 3, whatever, you're going to see a drop in revenue. That is for sure. So it'll give you time to be proactive, to say, hang on, what's going on here? And then analyze. What are we saying? What is our message actually? So you go back, you look at all the social media things you're doing, your team is doing, and you say, maybe this is attracting the wrong kind of traffic who are coming just for information on our website, and they will never buy. So that will give you time to go back, talk to your marketing people, or if you're doing it yourself, to fine tune your message and say, maybe we need to sort of change it, all that. So these are just a few things that help you understand the importance of a business model, a sustainable business model, and how to put this together, right? So let's see if there are any questions on this topic on LinkedIn. Nope. No, this page is not refreshing. Okay. Twitter, nothing. YouTube, nothing. Okay, that's fine. Because it's not really a rocket science topic, right? So it's not like you will have burning questions. This topic is more about for you to meditate on it, to reflect on it, to look at how you're doing your things, and maybe make some changes, especially things like looking at the metrics and analyzing so that your strategy may need to be changed, your tactics, and so on and so forth, right? So I hope you found this live episode useful. If you have any questions, hit me up on LinkedIn, DM me. It's Mash Bonigala, or on Twitter, it's at Bonigala. All right. Till tomorrow's live episode, go forth and prosper.